Oh, man. Are you ready for Friday and the weekend? Well, Friday's already here. The weekend is just around the corner. Finally, Friday. If you're in the chat, shout out, say hi. I know Kevin's there. Finally, Friday is being brought to you this week by Major Spoilers VIP and Patreon members from around the world. If you enjoy our content, all the things that we do at Major Spoilers, and you want access to a bunch of other stuff, then point your browser, maybe not right now, or actually just open another tab, and go to patreon.com/Major Spoilers. Well, happy Friday to you. We've made it through another week, and we're all together once more at the week's end. Kevin wants to know, how was my week? Well, we're going to find out. Some of you sent me many tweets this week asking, why was there no Major Spoilers podcast this week? What's going on? Well, let me tell you the story, my friends, of Tropical Depression, Hays, Kansas, 2019. Which is really weird, right, that I say Tropical Depression, because I have a bunch of alerts on my phone, weather alerts, etc. And on, was it Monday night? I got a message that said, hey, a tropical depression has formed, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, tropical depressions are not for our area. And sure enough, this was for somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico. But I thought that was kind of funny, kind of odd. Well, hey there, wayward boy. And then Tuesday, I got a notice that said, hey, there's a chance of rain and storms in your area. Be aware, some of it may be severe. I still do have the weather station above my desk. See? There it is. Right there. I got it working again. I had to actually get a whole new Raspberry Pi to get everything working again. Which wasn't that big of a deal. Raspberry Pi is like $30 and about an hour of tinkering. And there you go. So Tuesday comes and I'm just like, okay, storm clouds are coming in. I can see it on the radar, just big. The weather station with radars on this one, it goes from, blue to green to yellow to, I think, orange, then red, and then purple. And purple is like, hold on to your butts, people. And I can see this coming. This was miles away, but I can sit here and I can watch like 100, 200 miles out. I can see almost to the edge of the Colorado border, and I saw this big, massive thing just coming my way. I was like, holy cow. And my wife was out doing karate with my youngest son. And so I was down here getting ready to record Top 5 and the Major Spoilers podcast. And so I get Matthew on the phone, and we're right around up to I think we were up to our number 3s. And the edge of the storm hits town. And I had told my wife, hey, there's a severe weather alert that has just been issued. Drive safe on the way home. And I'm just figuring it's no big deal. It's just a little rain, maybe a little hail. Tiny hail. I wasn't even concerned about moving my truck inside into the garage. The garage is a big garage. It's a 2-car garage, but with both of our cars, that truck makes it really hard to get in and out. And then all of a sudden I get a message from my son saying, oh my gosh, the soccer netting in the backyard has fallen down, and we've got soccer netting up for to keep his ball from bouncing into other people's yards. And then we get up to, so Matthew and I are just recording away, and I'm just kind of blow off my son. I was just like, no big deal. And I've got headphones on. I'm listening to Matthew and background noise and everything. So I didn't hear any rain hitting the window that's right over here. And then the power went off. Boom. And it came right back on, but it was enough to reset my computer, reset the internet. I had to wait for all that to boot up, so I was like, okay, I'll go upstairs, see what's going on. My youngest comes in from karate. He's like, oh my God, it's like a huge storm outside. And I'm looking, and sure enough, the rain is just beating the heck out of the windows, and the winds are blowing. And I was like, oh, some of that's a little stronger than what we're used to. We do get very strong winds in western Kansas, coming down from the north in the winter and in the fall. Sometimes 60 miles an hour. So I wasn't really putting too much into, the screams of panic from my children. But you could tell there was some panic in their eyes, especially for the one that had just come in. And so I went back downstairs to record the show again. Opened it up, got it back, had only lost a few minutes. Started recording again, and then boom, the power goes off again. It wouldn't have mattered because the UPS would not have mattered because, and I do have a UPS, because the internet and everything else would have gone off. So again, everything is shut down for a minute. I'm like, okay, great. And my wife's like, I think we better bring your truck into the garage. I'm like, man, she's like, it's hailing out there now. And I'm like, well, if it's already hailing, by the time we finagle both of the cars to get in the garage, the hail's going to be past. But they kept insisting to do this. So I go out in the drenching cold rain, getting pelted by hail, get my truck in the garage. And sure enough, the minute that I get the truck into the garage, the hail stops, and it's just wind and rain. The average speed for the storm when it blew through, and I did share some images. I did share some images online of the size of, this was a supercell that blew through. But it's interesting because they said tropical depression. The average speed of the storm when it blew through, 78 miles per hour, which is, they said, hurricane level 0 or whatever it is. Sustained winds of 78 miles per hour. And there were a couple of times, after the second time the power went off, I just told Matthew, I said, you know what, let's just cancel all the recordings for tonight because I could see on the radar that this thing was going to last for several more hours. And with the power continually kicking on and on, whether my computer shut down or not, if the internet kept shutting down and there were power outages in the area, it wouldn't have made any sense for trying to fight that for the rest of the night, which is fine because the power did go off 2 more times, or at least blinked off and brownouts and all that stuff. And you don't want that for your electronics equipments. And so we canceled it. That's what it was. It was the storms and the power. Hopefully you can understand that. Most people seem pretty forgiving about that. But when the wind was blowing, we have fencing all around our backyard, and I was like, oh my God. I hope that fence doesn't blow down. The house that I owned previously, it was my wife's house, actually. She owned it before I met her, but it became mine. But we had a storm similar to that blow through, like 15 years ago. Yeah, about 15 years ago. And it blew down the back fence, and I had to go out and rebuild that thing. It was a wooden fence at the time. And I was worried that our vinyl fencing was just going to blow and smack into the house, or that we were going to lose shingles off the roof, or that siding was going to come ripped off. Fortunately for us, knock on the old wood, we had my son's soccer fencing knocked over. Set that up the next morning perfectly fine. One branch, small branch, was probably, I don't know, maybe 3 feet long, broke off of one of our trees in the front yard. And that was it. No hail damage on the car. It was a little pea-sized stuff. No fence blowing down. No tiles blowing off the roof. No shingles blowing off the roof. The only casualty here at the Major Spoilers HQ was no Major Spoilers podcast. That was not the case for the rest of town. Neighbor down at the end of the street is a co-worker of mine at the university. He had a bunch of siding strip off the side of his house. At one point, my wife, when she said she was driving into the into our neighborhood, she saw a kid's pool just kind of floating up in the air, spinning like a UFO that blew out of somebody's yard. Lots of trees down. The person that's next door to us, she had like 3 major trees fall down. Other coworkers of mine, they ended up with like holes in some of their things that were about the size of golf balls. A lot of crops being ruined and damaged. At the university, the office manager, she completely lost her pumpkin and squash and zucchini in her garden because of the hail. We didn't have that large of hail here, but it was scary. And then they said, hey, you basically had a hurricane blow through. A lot of people, a lot of branches and trees and things that are down in everyone's yards. Even today, a lot of fences that are just like ours. Literally the next morning when I was driving out of town, or out of the neighborhood, just baboosh. Just think of like, you know, if you stacked up a bunch of styrofoam cups and you made a little styrofoam cup wall, and then you blew it with a leaf blower, and those cups would just go flying everywhere. That's kind of the way a lot of these fences were when they when the wind hit them. They just baboosh and scattered everywhere. In fact, even today, 4 days later, we were driving down the street, and my son is like, hey, Dad, there's still part of a fence up in that tree. And sure enough, a big section of fence is like wedged up in a tree like 30 feet up in the air that they still haven't taken down. But a lot of trees, some roofs, the church up the street from us, their entire roof just peeled off and blew away. And you're right, Kevin. Just in our little town, it's about, 5 miles by 5 miles across, something like that. Maybe it's 3 by 3. One side of town completely untouched. Another side of town, just so much damage. Down at the university, the power plant, in addition to all of the trees that went down, the power plant had an entire wall collapse, or a section of a wall collapse in between 2 large window areas. And then my son's, the middle school, and again, I should also point out that Tuesday night was the night before school was to begin. So Wednesday we were supposed to have school. About 10:30 at night, the school district sent out a message saying, hey, the middle school has sustained damage. And because of that, we're going to cancel all of the district school starts for Wednesday. So my kids are jumping up and down and screaming, hooray. Including my son's elementary school, my other son's elementary school, which had no damage. And the middle school had a bunch of windows get blown out in one section of the building. And then another friend of mine, she said she was sitting in her living room, and all of a sudden, rain starts coming in. Water starts pouring down from their ceiling fan. And some of you may have been in a situation like this, where rain is just coming down, a ceiling-mounted electrical appliance in just droves. So you kind of feel sorry for her, but then you feel even more sorry because, are you ready for this? Her living room is on the first floor of a 3-story house. Yeah, that's some major damage. So I feel personally lucky that we didn't have any major damage, and again, knock on wood, that we don't. I mean, we didn't have any leakage. A lot of people had water in their basements. We didn't. Young Zach Wolf had some water in his basement, and he had to go and yank up a bunch of flooring because of the water damage. His dad's coffee shop had a little bit of damage, is my understanding. His in-laws had a lot of damage. Like I said, a friend down the street had a siding ripped off their house. Dr. Brad said he had a little bit of water in his basement bathroom, but everything was okay there. Brian, who lives in a trailer, surprisingly, not a single trailer in that trailer court flipped over. Now, there was one that I saw when I went to go pick him up the other night for a critical hit. It had some significant damage, but I don't know if that was before the storm or after or because of the storm. But he said, yeah, the trailer was rocking, but no damage to that entire trailer court. So overall, the city of Hayes got by lightly, I would say. Some minor inconveniences. But I guess that does bring up the question, what happens when you have an emergency? Steven, you don't have a UPS on your computer, you could have shut it down. Still wouldn't have been able to continue recording the shows. Internet going out and etc. We didn't really lose anything. Matthew and I finished recording Top 5 last night. For those of you that were listening to our Dueling Review podcast, I talked a little bit about that. And by say listening to our Dueling Review podcast, I mean listening live over on our Discord server, the Major Spoilers Discord server. And yeah, you can go and listen every Thursday night, 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time, as we record and stream Dueling Review live. But yeah, we did get off very, very lightly. Kevin says, no issues at your storage locker. That was the thing I kind of forgot about until late in the day, and I was like, oh crap, we better go over to our storage facility and make sure that that hasn't been blown down, because it's just, corrugated metal type buildings. But no, perfectly fine, not even touched. No problems whatsoever. They had one, those mobile pods that you use when you move. They pull up to your house, they drop it off, you fill it up, and then they come and pick it up and drive it to the destination. They had an empty one of those, a display one that had tipped over, but other than that, no damage at all. Yeah, and it's not even all the Legos, right? That's where I keep the Lego right now. There's some of them is over there, so luckily nothing happened there. And so it was kind of really, I was surprisingly calm about everything. But again, go back to the question, are you prepared when a disaster strikes? Are you ready when a tornado comes into your area, or an earthquake? Hutchinson had a 4.2 earthquake, and Hutchinson's about 2 hours from here. Victoria, which is the town next door, about 5 or 6 miles east, maybe 10 miles east, they had a 3.0 earthquake the other day. And I know those are minor for those of you that live in earthquake country. We're in the middle of Kansas, by the way. But do you have a survival case if you have an earthquake or a flood or something? A bug-out bag, some people call it. I do. I've got portable batteries. I've got crank radios. We've got food that can be eaten that we rotate out in case a disaster strikes. We have backup clothing. We've got a little range, a little cook stove with some gas that can last us a couple of days if we absolutely needed to. But I just thought, in light of this storm that blew through, and no, we didn't have to seek shelter in our basement. They didn't even fire off the sirens in town. But are you prepared? Do you have something that can sustain you or last you a couple of days or more should disaster strike and occur? This public service announcement brought to you by Majorspoilers.com. Let's go to the let's go to the mailbag. I've got a couple of packages arrived yesterday. I didn't get the mail today, so the first one is from my comic book company, the people that ship my comic books to me. I think I'm only down to one title or 2 titles on my pull list anymore. She does package them in... I need to pay her. She does package them in some cardboard, and this cardboard is great because it's the nice kind of thick corrugated kind that I use on my laser cutter. So that's kind of cool. Actually, I've got a laser cutter project that I'm going to show off on an upcoming Munchkinland episode, so be ready for that. So she sent me a bill. Let's see. Beep, 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 beep. Thank you so much. Blop, blop, blop. Flash number 76 out this week. Did you guys get Flash 76? The Frozen Fury of Captain Cold. Or it could be the Frozen of Captain Fury Cold, depending on how you want to read that. Oh, man. We're getting close to one of our next goals over at patreon.com/majorspoilers. And was it last month? For those of you who are patrons, I see a couple of you lit up with the right Patreon tag there in the chat. Was it last month that I showed you what a segment from the Major Spoilers podcast live stream would look like? It looks pretty cool. Nathan, W. Nathan's on Twitter, has been making some templates for us, and they look pretty cool. And so we've got to get the GM roundtable, and then I think the one after that is the live Major Spoilers Podcast. But we're preparing. We know that some of you out there will want to support us in the future. So, yeah, get over there if you're not. Now, this one says Simon & Schuster, so this is a book publisher. But I'm guessing this is probably something from Boom Studios because they still send out physical promo copies of stuff. And who is this? Yep, Boom Studios right there on the back. This is the first, is it the first trade paperback of Sparrowhawk from Delilah S. Dawson and Matthias, what is it, Basla? B-A-S-L-A? This looks interesting. It's a review copy, not for resale, so you don't expect me to resell this. I have not read this. I don't know if we've reviewed this over at Major Spoilers as single individual issues, but I think the art is interesting, and I do like, if you guys are not following Delilah on Twitter, let me get this in here. If you're not following Delilah on Twitter, I would suggest you do so, because she has a wealth of fantastic information, tips and tricks that get threaded on very long. You know, basically their essays on Twitter on how to be a better writer. Not only a comic book writer, but a prose writer. Novel. She's got a couple of novels. I just recently finished Kill the Farm Boy, which I thought was very, very good. So if you're someone who's a writer or aspiring writer or just a continuing writer, follow Delilah S. Dawson on Twitter because she posts a lot of great information about that on a regular basis. Now, let's see here. Here's the insert that they always send us. Sparrowhawk arrives in comic shops on August 14th, 2019, so that's out this week, and will be available in bookstores on August 20th. And let's see, what is this book about? After a young woman is kidnapped by an evil fairy queen and trapped in a far-off realm, she must survive teen Victorian fairy fight club in order to get back home. As the daughter of a naval captain born of two different worlds, Artemisia, I don't know how you say that name, has never fit into her father's family nor the high-class life to which she belongs in the complicated time that is London, 1851. However, when she is targeted by the Fairy Queen and pulled into another realm with even deadlier threats than she experienced in the Victorian era, Art finds she has no choice but to try and save the world that has always hated her. Sounds pretty good. So there you go. Victorian Fairy Fight Club. That's Sparrowhawk. Yeah. Sparrowhawk out this week at your local comic book shops from Boom Studios. Now, the last package that I have here today. Oh, hey. Machu is now following. Thank you, Machu. Let's see, what else? Some of the things. Our worst storm was the first winter after I became a homeowner. Ice storm in Michigan. Didn't have power for almost a whole week. Ordered a generator on Amazon. Arrived about 10 degrees, so maybe 12 hours before we would have been in danger of pipes freezing. Oh, okay, I see. Oh, that's quick delivery. A few years ago, we had a winter storm that was supposed to be blowing through, and I got kind of nervous that it was going to knock out the power, and people were saying, oh, this is going to be really bad. And so I went out and bought a generator, and the thing has just sat in our garage. I've got a couple of things of gas that are ready to be... do I even have something to open this with? Got a couple of cans of gas to go, but I have yet to fire the thing up. Yeah, I'm going to use my teeth. There we go. What is this? What? I have no idea what this is. They've wrapped it up and then sealed it in plastic, so I have no idea what this is. When I was a kid, and I don't know if I've told this story before, I guess I was in middle school, maybe? No. Maybe middle school? Maybe as an 8th grade, maybe a freshman. I can't remember if I had a driver's license yet or not, but we had, right at the start of spring break, the night before spring break was supposed to start, we had an ice storm blow through at my parents' house. and heavy rains, raining all day, all day, all day. And then an ice storm blew in, and neighbors were coming up to help keep our basement from getting flooded because the water just pours into my parents' basement. It's built on a limestone base, so it's basically all water just flows right in there. I need to, where the heck is a pair of scissors? I don't want to break this, whatever it is. Oh, there we go. So people were, my dad ran off to go get a generator as we were pumping the water out, and, we tried to keep the sump pump going, and then the electricity went off. My dad's doing all this stuff. I had to go stay with the neighbors because of the fact that there was no power and things were going on. And the ice storm had come and iced everything over. And then the next morning, the family that I was staying with was like, hey, your dad walked outside to go to work, slipped and broke his ankle, and he had to go into surgery and have pins in his ankle for months. So that was a thing. And then for the entire spring break, there was no electricity. And literally the Saturday at the end of spring break, all the electricity came back on. Okay. So this is something that I ordered. It's the Spider Ronin S Crane 2 clamp mount plate with strap. Or maybe it's strap. Nah, it's strap. What I have here, if you don't know what a Ronin S is. Ronin is a gimbal, right? So, and I don't have this on, so just forgive me. But this is to keep your camera perfectly balanced while you're out running around. For those of you that watch my personal YouTube channel, I was out doing some stuff with the boy, and he kicked his soccer ball right into the lens, which was fun. But even though this is smaller than a lot of other gimbals that I have used over the years, from Steadicams all the way to, big two-handed things, this thing is really pretty nice, but it still gets heavy. And so what this spider thing does, I'll set this over here. Basically what it, I don't know where my scissors are. I think somebody ran off with them. Usually I have a utility knife right here. But what this does is it clamps onto the neck of the gimbal, and then it's got this part right here that you can use to clamp a neck brace to. And then you can use this as a kind of a third contact point, and also a way to take some of the weight off of your forearms when you're running around. So those are just some of the things that have come in the last couple of days. Also a little Allen wrench, or hex wrench or whatever. It's not like I don't have enough of those, right? I literally have a bag just full of these things. All right, what else? I have just got Volume 4 of Mobile Suit Gundam. What is that? Origin? Ojin? Quickly becoming my new favorite space sci-fi comic. Is that from Titan Comics? Victorian Fairy Fight Club sounds complicated. Maybe. We may have to check that out. When he doesn't have scissors or knife to open a package, Steven goes feral and uses his teeth. Arrgh. I gotta go running. Gotta go to dinner. Have a great rest of your Friday. Thank you, Milo. Oh, yeah. Hey, wait a minute. Milo Minder Binder. Is Milo Minder Binder... What is his real name? I forget. We don't want to dox him, but... Milo Minder... Jimmy. That's right. Go enjoy, Jimmy. Have a good rest of your weekend. And I think that's about where we're going to end it, too. The boy... Picked him up from school today. Man, this kid is like surly. Just like, don't talk to me. I was dropping him off at school yesterday, and I was practicing my... we were driving and getting closer to school and be like, hello, I love you, son. No, that doesn't quite sound right. I love you, son. I love you, son. And he's just like, shut up, don't. He was so worried that I was going to scream that out as he was getting out of the car. No, I didn't scream it out, but as he was leaving, I said, love you, bye. Slammed the door. But man, that kid is like grumpy. But tonight he has a dance, so we've got to go get ready for a dance. First school dance. It's not really a school dance. It's the Rec Commission is putting on grades 6 through 8, 6 through 7 grade dance. He's in 7th grade now, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I have a 7th grader in the house. Oh, published by Vertical. Okay. So we've got that going, but I am starving today. I don't know why. I had a nice salad for lunch, but I'm starving like you wouldn't believe. So I need to go find some food, get him ready for a dance, take him to a dance, and then edit a new episode of Critical Hit. And oh my gosh, ladies and gentlemen, if you are not already a Patreon member, you might be starting next week. Because the people who are patron members are going to have their jaws on the floor after this week's episode. I hope you're prepared. No one's prepared. Yeah, unless you got your bug-out bag and you're ready for any storm or thing that the world can throw at you, then you're always going to be prepared. Are you prepared for this weekend? Are you prepared for next week? Are you prepared for Finally Friday next week? Are you prepared for this list of awesome people who support this show and we love them dearly? I hope so. Because it is coming up right as soon as I click this button. There you go. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care. Oh, yeah, Brad wanted me to make sure that I mentioned there's somebody named Will on here. Ryan Will. He's like, that's not my son. But there's a Chris Hall there. Corey Graham is there. David McNally. It's like, oh, is David McNally related to the map-making groups? I have no idea, Brad. Steel Texura is there. Will Locke. Maybe he saw Will Locke and thought it was somebody else. There's Zach's name. AJ Lewis. Balooey. Balooey pops up in the chat. Where's he today? Oh, don't forget Saturday tomorrow, late afternoon or evening. I'll be back with a game stream. I think this week we are back into Red Dead Redemption 2, for anybody that cares. Twitch.tv/Major Spoilers if you're watching this on the replay. Also, if you are a patron at the $10 and higher level, we've got the VIP live chat, 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time. There's Jimmy's name. 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time, I'll give you some behind-the-scenes stuff, talk about some other things, show off some cool art, show off the new t-shirt art for year 13, as well as a few other surprises. Are you prepared? You better be. 1 o'clock tomorrow, Saturday, Central Time. There's Peter and Peter and Peter. Did I just see a Rick Sanchez pass by there? What was that? You guys are awesome. Look at all these awesome people.